Good morning, everyone. Thank you for waiting. Welcome to the earnings release presentation for the first quarter of 2021 from the Pardini Group. Our attendees are on listen-only mode, and we are presenting live. At the end of our presentation, we'll have a Q&A session. It is important to mention that we should ask questions only through the chat function. I will be reading the questions and our officers will be answering them. We won't be opening mics to ask questions. You can go to www.hermespardini.com.br/ri to this results center to see this presentation later. Any forward-looking statements made during this conference call regarding our business forecasts, goals, targets, and operating results are based on assumptions and beliefs by the board of directors and by the information available to us. These forecasts are not any type of guarantee because they involve risks and uncertainties. They are related to events that may or may not happen in the future. General economic conditions, industry conditions, and other operating factors could have an impact on our results in the future, leading to results that differ significantly from these forecasts. Today we have Mr. Roberto Santoro, our CEO, Mr. Alessandro Ferreira, our VP for Sales and Marketing, Camilo de Lelis, our IRO and CFO, Adriana Linhares, our Executive Officer for PSC, Guilherme Colares, Executive Officer for another segment, João Alvarenga, our IT and Digital Executive Officer, and Alessandro Ferreira, our Sales and Marketing VP. Now I hand it over to Mr. Roberto Santoro, our CEO and President. Thank you, Carlos. Good morning. Let me start off by talking about the importance of diagnostic medicine. There's no primary healthcare and there's no savings in healthcare without diagnostic medicine. The future goes through diagnostic medicine, especially when we think about the costs that we could be avoiding. We need to work on prevention to avoid people from getting sick and from unsatisfactory outcomes, which would have an impact on the healthcare industry. So let me talk about the importance of the Pardini Group. For over 5 years, we've been working on M&A with high credibility businesses, and we are working on specialization, and we have been transforming our business model. In the past, sometimes we saw diagnoses that were restricted only to big centers and big conglomerates. But Pardini, with its high specialization and good diagnostic infrastructure, has been providing a major part of the Brazilian population with access to highly specialized, highly complex exams. And for that, we need logistics, outreach, high levels of automation, better digital experiences, and speed. Because regardless of where our patients and clients are, we need to make sure they have access to the best exams in this industry to improve their experience in healthcare, whether or not they are closer to big centers. Diagnostic medicine in Brazil, especially through our group, has access to over 2,000 municipalities in Brazil, and this number has been growing. When we think about ESG, it is also important to talk about the impact that the Pardini Group has had. Public healthcare in Brazil happens mainly at a local level, and we have access to over 2,000 municipalities, and this allows us for quick diagnosis, which leads to saving lives. Because of this strategy and because of the work done by our employees, these people have access to highly qualified, highly complex diagnostic options. It is also important to see the results of an end-to-end approach by our group. That is why we say that we need to deliver what is best and what is more sustainable to shareholders and patients alike, not only with a very strong strategy, but also with good figures quarter by quarter. With end-to-end relationships, we've seen that we've chosen the right strategy and that we've chosen a strategy that has become more relevant for the healthcare operations. We are also strong because we keep investing in innovation. We are ranking second as the most innovative healthcare companies in Brazil according to Valor Econômico and according to other rankings as well. It is also important to remember that innovation includes infrastructure, automation technology, logistics, outreach, and access. Pardini is a big ecosystem for diagnosis. Infrastructure is paramount for our strategy. Also, our business models have been revisited. This is in alignment with the participation of the companies we have been working with. Let me give you an example. We are part of a prevalence study for COVID-19 in Brazil called PrevCov. We have collaborations with the Ministry of Healthcare, with the Pan American Health Organization, and Fiocruz. Pardini was hired to carry out over 10,000 tests for COVID-19. We'll have 70,000 home collections from north to south. Pardini was chosen for this work because we have over 6,000 partnering labs and because we are able to duly process these tests. It is also important to remember that we are going to be clients of our clients because our clients will be in charge of home collection in the municipalities where the Pardini Group does not have specific centers or its own centers. This is another way of innovating in our business model, and this kind of project really changes the diagnostic industry. And it goes to show how important this industry is. Let me also talk about toxicology. We made huge investments in forensic toxicology. We were working with occupational tests, but with our outreach and with our production model, we more than doubled our capacity for tests specifically with forensics. In April, the Brazilian Transit Authority published changes in its laws, and we have now intermediate exams every 2.5 years, and that is why volume has been growing over 500% compared to the same type of test in other weeks. This has to do with our plans and our planning for toxicology infrastructure. We're able to double the production of these exams when we have higher demand. But this is only possible because of the business model we started using a couple of years back and because of the infrastructure we now have with new technologies, for example, LTDT. Because of that, we have efficiency in production costs and we have high capacity for production and delivery. So this is another example of infrastructure. Neonatal screening is now using molecular technology as well. Through the acquisition of one of the most important companies in this field, DLE, the Pardini Group is now ready as well for neonatal screening and growth in this area. We have new detection models and new technologies that have been approved for neonatal screening in Brazil. Now, if we think about technology and innovation, and João Alvarenga will be able to talk about this later, more and more we are creating a new digital relationship with clients and with other stakeholders. In the first quarter, when it comes to technology, we also finished our work on the architecture of precision care, our first fully integrated healthcare platform. We are now applying this to a business vertical. We're going to have e-commerce, sales, marketplace, and we're going to work with our new distributor, which is called the Pardis distributor. We want to replicate the success of My Pardini 2.0, this digital environment that we have already released. Right now, this has to do with our relationship with lab-to-lab clients. In 2021, we're going to work with the consolidation of the rest of our group. We have inorganic growth as well with other brands and other businesses. It is important for us to use our legacy systems, especially for customer service. With Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, and Goiânia, this is something we've been working on so that we can have as much synergy as possible, reducing costs, standardizing processes, and gaining from the synergy. We also want to have technological improvement on this matrix, and we want to use it for every brand and every production model. We also want to have full interoperability with our new partnering labs. We want to do it quickly, in up to 10 days. We have new strategies for bars, APIs, mnemonic AI, and report templates. And everything will be 100% automated. This brings us speed, especially when integrating with new clients in the lab-to-lab segment and with new operators or new healthcare providers. Interoperability is one of our challenges right now, and the Pardini Group has been working so that we have better speeds. When we have new labs who want to support us or new healthcare providers, if we have good interoperability, we'll have quicker testing as well and better operations, but also faster results. Also in technology, through our relationship portal with these labs all over Brazil, which is called the My Pardini 2.0 model, we have also developed the lab-to-lab digital account, where we are adding products and services through weekly sprints. Our last delivery was the possibility of starting an account with Pardini in a totally digital environment without the participation of any employees in this process. This is a direct interface, and our clients can be connected to the Pardini labs using these features and resources, including our products and services. Still in technology, we have a new strategy for digital marketing with new employees and partners. This is really important, especially for personalized medicine. When we have a lot of healthcare providers, healthcare professionals, and clients who usually use technology, we need to make sure it works. Of course, this structure has the clear goal of boosting brand awareness in a digital environment and of increasing our revenue. In March, we had a 199% increase in comparison to February in the sales of vaccines in our e-commerce. And this applies not only to vaccines, but also COVID-19 testing. We had a 659% increase in direct sales through e-commerce. Our organic traffic with digital marketing and access platforms also grew by over 500%. So this is organic traffic for our portals with our clients. We've also implemented other strategies to increase digital presence for these brands and the experience of our customers in digital channels. We are working on rebranding in social media. We are improving websites and apps, and we are also hiring MarTech tools. This is important. We've been making investments, especially in digital marketing. Camilo will also be talking about record numbers that we had this trimester or this quarter. in gross revenue, gross profit, EBITDA, net income, and lab-to-lab clients. We've been reaching record numbers, both in finances and in production. We'll see these numbers in details soon. But let me show you some highlights. We are working on efficiency, volume, price, and SG&A. And because of that, we were able to reach record-breaking results in the first quarter for these indicators. Now, before Camilo starts, I would like to say that we had a record number in the volume of tests, 32.5 million tests, basically 33% higher than in the first quarter of 2020. And these are recurring tests. And 3% of them are for COVID-19, so we had a 30% increase year on year. This is a historical number for Pardini. And by the way, the first 3 months of a year are usually not as busy. It is about season. There is seasonality, but our results were still 33% higher year on year. And in the previous year, in the first quarter, we felt an impact because of COVID-19, especially in the first half of March. And as everyone knows, we've had the second wave of COVID-19, and we had high numbers of mortality in Brazil. So we can compare these two quarters, especially when it comes to the growth of recurring tests. This goes to show that we had strong growth year on year. We also reached record numbers in COVID-19 tests volumes. We had 10% more in comparison to the last quarter of 2020. And our role is very important in epidemiological control. We were able to work with high quality and precision. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've performed over 4 million tests for COVID-19 in Brazil. Our TCPR, which is more complex, amounted to 2.5 million tests. And in our metrics and in our case series, we had 30.3% in the first 4 months of 2021, 2 percentage points higher than the average of 2020, which was 28%. So the pandemic is still here. We still have a lot of cases. That is why we can compare these quarters, and we can show that we have gained market share. We also had more recurring tests year on year. Now, for the PSC segment, we had record numbers as well in volume for this quarter. I've already talked about seasonality, and we ramped up volume throughout this quarter. In January, we had two-digit growth. In February, almost 30%, and in March, almost 50%, even ex-COVID. We had a 30% general growth in volume, two digits in January and February, and over 50% in March, even excluding COVID. It is also important to mention that even though we have added COVID-19 tests to the portfolio of products, we still have relevant growth, not only in volume, but also in margin. In our management of contracts with healthcare providers and insurance plans, we've been able to foster a good relationship with them. Once again, we can see that we have different approaches with our inflation rates in comparison to other industries. And this allows for a long-term sustainable relationship with these parties without hurting the total expenditures that they have. In comparison to other industries, diagnostic medicine is in alignment with these practices of having middlemen in the long term. Regarding PSC, we also rented another location in São Paulo to start another facility in Moema. This is for clinical analysis and imaging. We are probably going to launch this location in September, and this reinforces our organic growth potential with the Pardini brand, both in São Paulo and Rio.
In terms of lab to lab, we've had an increase in total volume, 33%, and 30% ex-COVID. We also had an increase of 60% in revenue, practically the double as EBITDA. This is a very important evolution because it shows that Pardini is acknowledged for its infrastructure and its delivery ability despite competition. This shows that lab to lab is very sustainable. It shows our strength in this business. This is not an easy business. We know that it depends on a high level of organization, automation, sales, commercial infrastructure, and everything else that it takes so that samples are released as quickly as possible. So the lab-to-lab results doubled in the first quarter of 2021 vis-a-vis the same period in 2020. There is also a markup in prices that was necessary and took place in the first quarter, showing that this business should be more highly evaluated. And also it allows a good cost to benefit ratio for those who use reference labs like our own. And of course, scale and volume help getting a better balance of price offered to our customers with increases that are sustainable over time. So these price increases are also conducive with the RT-PCR test that are used by other operators. Local healthcare operators are also our clients. These were the main points that I wanted to address. And before Camilo starts his presentation, I would like to thank the engagement of our team, the engagement of all professionals and employees who help us throughout the country. They've been working so hard during the pandemic to bring the best results to our customers and our investors. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank our 6,000 employees and indirect workers. Now I will turn over to Camilo, who is going to talk about the results of the first quarter of 2021. Thank you, Roberto. Good morning to all participants. Before I start presenting the figures, I would like to talk about the record levels we have achieved. But it's not because we are comparing against a weak basis. Of course, the first quarter of last year was a little bit weaker, but considering our background we have developed in the country in the past years, if you take, for example, 2010, when we started NTO, we used to have 6 million tests in half a year. Now it's 32 million. So we are not talking about a weak basis of reference. No, we have increased 5 times. In addition to that, several improvement projects were implemented, such as enterprise, custom service, attention to patients, attention to cost, a project that focuses on production efficiency, another one on cost reduction. And we were able to deal with the COVID situation. We started plans overnight We started a home office project. So indeed, we have a sum of excellent steps that the company has taken over the years. So these figures are growing, but they come from a good start. Talking about the first quarter, as Roberto mentioned, the first quarter of 2021 again set another historic record in terms of volume. Our results are very consistent. Total amount of 32 million tests. After the first, also in the last quarter of 2020, we had reached unheard results. We were diligently following up costs, prices, operation indicators, especially SG&A. We focused on SG&A costs. We were able to set new performance records for a first quarter in revenue, gross profit, EBITDA, net income, and growth in number of clients, and also increase in market share. In terms of volume of exams, there was a 32.8% increase in the first quarter of 2021 vis-a-vis the first quarter of 2020. This was a new historic record for the company with excellent productivity and excellence. We used almost 100% of our production capacity. In the lab-to-lab collection channel, in this period, we had a growth in ex-COVID-19 volume tests vis-a-vis the first quarter of last year. This is related to our expansion in our customer portfolio and also increase in share of wallet, influenced by higher outsourcing in the lab-to-lab test market. In the PSC collection channel, we had growth in volume ex-COVID everywhere we operate. And this is true both for clinical analysis and image. It's important to highlight that now we have reached the same levels of 2019. It's also important to say that São Paulo had a consistent growth throughout the period because of the diagnostic tests we've been running for COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic, reinforcing our brand and our values. Also in other strong markets like Minas Gerais and Goiás, where the growth in clinical analysis ex-COVID were also important so that we could keep growing as a whole. We also had a record in revenue in lab-to-lab. The gross revenue showed strong recovery in the first quarter of 2021, and our rational operation through lab-to-lab in several areas of PSC was crucial for this recovery. We had a growth of 55% of gross revenue in the first quarter vis-a-vis the same period of last year. This is done for both collection channels, PSC and lab-to-lab. These were record levels. In PSC, we had growth in ex-COVID revenue vis-a-vis the same period of the previous year. From all the offices where we operate, in São Paulo, for example, we had significant growth ex-COVID in clinical analysis and in image. Also in Minas Gerais and Goiás, the growth in clinical analysis especially has significantly contributed to the expansion of the gross revenue of PSC as a whole. There was a strong expansion in invoicing in L2L in the first quarter because now we can offer exams of the COVID-19 family to all our customers. We increased our customer base and we improved the level of service that we have now with superior levels vis-a-vis the first quarter of 2021 ex-COVID. In terms of record of gross profit in the first quarter, there was a 79% growth vis-a-vis the same period of last year, impacted by COVID-19 process by the company in the first quarter of 21, and also because we are now increasing again our recurrent revenue. As of the second half of March of 2020, the gross profit of the company has been impacted in the beginning of the COVID, and this is why the comparative basis was smaller, as I mentioned before. We've been following up indicators of volume, price, and operating costs, and our gross margin in the first quarter of 21 had an increase of 387 base points when compared to the first quarter of 20. EBITDA has reached 106.4 million reais in the first quarter of 21, with a 110.6% increase vis-a-vis the first quarter of 20. The EBITDA margin reached 22.3% in the first quarter of 21, vis-a-vis 16.4% in the same quarter of the previous year. This margin increase is due to the operating leverage of the company, so gradual increase in the ex-COVID exams, a lower comparative basis in the first quarter of 20 because of the impact of the pandemic, and also because of the efficiencies we have accumulated in this period. Operating expenses with sales, general and administrative expenses had a reduction of 16.3% in the first quarter of 20 to 12.2% in the first quarter of 21 due to the growth in our sales and also several reduction plans that the company has implemented lately. ROIC, excluding premium, was 37.7%, a 280 base point increase when compared to the same quarter of the previous year. The operating cash flow of Pardini in the first quarter of 21 was 85.7 million, a 106% growth vis-a-vis the same period of last year. Another important point is our level of delinquency and disallowances. I would like to highlight that even in a pandemic environment, the first quarter of 21, delinquency levels was just 0.51% of the net revenue, while disallowances account for only 0.3% of the gross revenue. These are historic levels to us. It's important to highlight that our focus is on the future. We are constantly pursuing operating improvements in company management, and especially taking care of people. Thank you for your attention, and now we can move to the question and answer session. Let me remind you that questions should be asked using the chat box, and we are going to read your questions. The first question is from Gustavo Tiseo, our sell-side analyst with Bradesco BBI. So, good morning, and thank you for your presentation. I would like you to talk more about the distribution of inputs. So, in the long term, what kind of timeline are you planning for product distribution in addition to products related to COVID-19? And what about the customers' feedback in this channel? Do they see a possibility of replacing their current distributor with your business? Thank you for your question. Fernando Ramos, our lab-to-lab director responsible for the distribution business, is going to answer this question. Good morning, Gustavo. Thank you for your question. And thank you for your interest in this new business of the Pardini Group. Let me make a brief introduction before answering your question. It's important to make it clear to investors where this idea came from. We created Pardis, the Pardini distributor, in 2020 at a very acute point of the pandemic, when there was a lot of uncertainty related to the rapid tests that were being provided. There were a lot of uncertainties related to the availability of tests, and the Pardini Group took its research and development structure, it's a structure of negotiation with clients to be able to provide rapid tests that had a high level of quality. Naturally, providing the tests that were in our inventory. So we took advantage of the group's reputation and its relationship that we had with lab-to-lab segment clients. And as we mentioned in the release, this is a business that, combined to hospital support, is already a very relevant business. Almost 5% of the revenue of the lab-to-lab segment is due to these two segments. Now, answering your question, how can we think about this business in the long term? There are a few points that I would like you and other analysts to have in mind. The distributor can be a very relevant business in the Pardini Group in a few years' time, both in terms of revenue, coverage, the possibility of opening doors to new businesses. So this is why we believe this is a very relevant business for the future. It is a new way of getting revenue from regular customers. Today, we work with the lab-to-lab portfolio of customers. This is a relevant revenue today, but in terms of coverage of lab-to-lab customers, it just accounts for less than 10% of these customers. Only less than 10% of these customers purchase from the distribution business. So we have room for growth. When we think about this business in the long term, the fact that it belongs to our group makes it easier for us to establish a new business because we have a lot of synergies with other current businesses, whether there are logistics synergies, SG&A synergies. So there is a strength, there is leverage because the distributor is part of our group. Now, moving to your next question related to the portfolio of products. Until the first quarter, our focus was very specific on rapid tests for COVID-19. We were able to cover the whole range of tests that focus on COVID-19, both rapid tests and point-of-care solutions. We also provided that to several customers, including some hospitals. In the second quarter, we are adding new types of tests to our portfolio. At this point, still only rapid tests, such as the rapid test for dengue fever, for Zika fever, for HIV. These are some of the rapid tests we are adding to our portfolio. And we are negotiating right now with suppliers so that we can also add other point-of-care products and also inputs for collection. In the future, we want to add new products. We might add vaccines or virtually any products that a lab or a hospital need to purchase. So there is a go-to-market strategy that has been designed and presented to the company's board. And now we are planning ourselves in terms of sales actions, determining the scope of clients, because we might use the distribution business to reach other areas and other clients. And talking about clients and moving to your final question about their feedback, we had an internal survey with our clients to understand how they see this business. And the results were impressive in terms of intention to keep buying from us. And we see that because we have recurring orders from them, and also because of their intention of purchasing other products. More than 90% of our customers mentioned that they plan to purchase other products from us. Of course, we need to understand the product portfolio, price strategy, payment conditions, and so on that are important decisions for this business model. But we clearly see that we have taken a very important first step towards a new business model that tends to be very large here in the group.
Hi, thank you for your question. This is a great opportunity for us to explain the strategy that we have with Pardis. With our partnering labs and with our partners in the lab-to-lab segment, we've always tried to work with supplying people with what they need, providing them with what they need. The more we are working on the production chain and the value chain of this customer, the more we'll have loyalty and revenue because we'll be able to sell more products to these customers. So that is why we have created parties. This is our strategy. And we have two big competitive edges, which are key factors for the quick growth that we see for parties. Number one, at parties, we offer products, and these products go through research and development, go through internal validation, both technically and clinically. And when they leave our company, they have been already approved. Other traditional distributors resell products from this industry, or even products that are produced by themselves at a small scale. But we use these products in our daily operations at Pardini. We know how they behave. We know their specificities and sensitivities. This brings credibility to our operations. So in addition to selling these products, and of course, we have great interaction with the sales department, the marketing department, and the logistics department, even though we don't have big structures dedicated to that. And right now we are leveraging our structure at Pardini. We also offer this approval by the Pardini Group in clinical terms and technological terms. This has made a huge difference. And right now with IT, we are also building something based on the precision care platform. It is important to highlight that every initiative is connected to the precision care platform, and we are now including an e-commerce area. IT is taking care of that with the business department. So parties will be connected to a very robust e-commerce. This is how we'll get even greater scale. And this is more than a bet. We are past this stage. This business already brings relevant revenue in. We enjoy these synergies, and we are working on this digital platform as a business proposition, but we are leveraging it even more. As I said, this will all be connected to the precision care platform, which goes to show that Pardini is coherent in what it offers. We are offering solutions based on digital strategies. Fernando has something to add, Alessandro. And Fernando, João Alvarenga is our CIO. He's in charge of our digital strategy. So I think he should talk about the precision care platform in our marketplace, including the solutions that are going to help us with this initiative and other initiatives in the future. Go ahead, Fernando. Of course, Alessandro was mentioning some very interesting points, and I'd just like to add to them. It is important to mention that Parties has been around for only a few months, and we already have significant revenue and a profitable business. We've had positive EBITDA a few months in a row, even though this is a really recent company. It is already adding to our operations. And Roberto, we were talking about synergies, but let me give you an example of that. In the first quarter, we started operating in a major hospital. We were working with our model of hospital support. And this is also a really interesting initiative with high potential of growth and with a positive EBITDA, even though we've been around for 3 months. And the municipality of this hospital was going through a very bad part of the pandemic. So we used our infrastructure to have a point of care inside this hospital for COVID readings. In this case, we are not talking about the rapid test. But this was provided to them according to a big partner of ours, and we were able to quickly have screening for COVID-19 patients and non-COVID-19 patients whenever they suspected that these patients could have COVID. So this allowed us to bring in revenue both with the hospital support system and the distributor at the same time. This is the kind of synergy that we have when we create a healthcare ecosystem, as Roberto was explaining to you at the beginning of this presentation. Now, before I hand it over to João, and he has been helping us a lot at parties with the IT team to come up with a competitive business model. We know that right now we have a sales structure that is very timid, right, João? Some of it is in the My Pardini, but with the investments we're going to make, we want to grow and we want to truly create a platform to distribute products to our customers. João, you may comment on this. Thank you. It is important to mention that our digital strategy goes along with our business strategy, and I want to talk about how we have been connecting these internally. 3 years ago, we started with a customer experience program. We wanted to bring about this change in a very pragmatic way, with a purpose, with a foundation, and with quantitative, practical results in the short term. This has been our strategy with the digital platforms. We are mapping out the journey of our clients, we are mapping out their pain points, and these results in digital products and services that truly make a difference and that truly add value to our stakeholders. We want to foster simpler relationships and less friction. This is very important. We want seamless relationships which are cheaper and easier to maintain. And at the end of the day, what we have been fostering here is engagement with these stakeholders, either in B2B or B2C. We also see increase in revenue, as we could see in today's conference call. And also we want to be digital and we want to have more automation, as Camila was saying, because this only brings cost reductions. It is only natural for it to bring cost reductions. So we want to be pragmatic and we want to create a joint strategy, business strategy with digital transformation. Regarding your initial question, technology is here to help with that. And in our previous meeting, we talked about our integrated platform called Precision Care. We were successful with My Pardini 2.0, which right now is considered the best tool to have a relationship between a major institution and partnering labs. We even got awards for that as a really big, good digital tool. And we are going to expand that to other stakeholders in this area. We can talk about healthcare providers, professionals, hospitals, companies, pharmaceutical companies, and we also want to keep and improve the PSC segment and the lab-to-lab segment. Regarding parties, our distributor, one of the first cases and one of the first uses in this platform will be our e-commerce for Pardini products and services. We will also have a marketplace. And of course, our distributor will be closely connected to that. This will be a robust platform where our relationship with every stakeholder goes through the same platform. We're going to have a lot of perks, a lot of interoperability, a lot of gains, and we're going to generate value to every player in this supply chain. Thank you, João. Our next question comes from Jardel Alves, an investor. Jardel asks, is there any possibility of geographic expansion regarding M&As? And how are M&As going right now? Do you have an expansion plan for the upcoming years? Thank you for your question, Jardel. It's an interesting question. Before I hand it over to Camilo to talk about M&As, I would like to stress that Pardini has two big pillars for M&As. One of them is what we did in the last years, buying companies with a lot of technical competence and a lot of research and development, R&D, so that we can add products to our portfolio and so that we can get access to new municipalities and generate scale. This is what we did with DLE, Diagnostica, Progenetica, among other acquisitions. Now, another pillar is to be in the markets where we are right now, São Paulo, Rio, Goiânia, and the metropolitan area of Belo Horizonte in Minas Gerais. If there's anything inorganic that could lead to better relationship with our clients, market expansion, or market share gains, this is always great. Also, in Goiânia in 2013, we had an opportunity to have partnerships or even acquisitions to reach new potential markets, to which we could add not only PSC with local brands, but also in which we could have a new hub for advanced tech centers. We can have high levels of automation and diagnostic intelligence with the advanced centers, and we can be closer to these customers, especially in the lab-to-lab segment. It is important to stress that Pardini is one of the few companies in diagnostic medicine balancing two big businesses, PSC and lab-to-lab. And these two go together within the big infrastructure for diagnostic medicine, which is enterprise and our logistics. It's not easy to balance these two business lines. We also have the hospital support approach, but Pardini has been dealing with all of that in a very balanced way according to what the market needs. So these are the two pillars. We can improve our portfolio as a role model and as a reference for other stakeholders, or we could enjoy the opportunity of going into new markets with existing brands, working with an infrastructure through the advanced tech centers to be closer to these clients and to be connected to our center, our core center, to allow for expansion. M&As are in our plan for the upcoming years, and even this year. I think Camilo has something to add. Hi, good morning, Jardel. Thank you for your question. As Roberto was saying, acquisitions that make sense to our business are in our plan, both in lab-to-lab and PSC. In the last years, we had 14 acquisitions, around 600 million reals. We are still focused on that, on new acquisitions. Our M&A department is working full-time in analyzing these possibilities. Currently, in our portfolio, many opportunities are being analyzed, and potentially in the next months, we could be announcing a new acquisition. So please be patient. We'll have some news soon. Guilherme, before we go to the next question, since they were talking about infrastructure and we mentioned toxicology, I think you could talk about it. There was a lot of expansion in the forensic toxicology industry with tests not only for drivers and professional divers, including other functions, but laws have been changed in this market, which boosted volumes, and we can talk about how Pardini is ready for that. I think not many people know about this. about our capacity of production for forensic toxicology. Of course, Roberto. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Once again, we've been able to show that we are able to adapt to market needs. With the enterprise project, which is fully operational right now, and which leads to the possibility of expanding our production capacity really easily without increasing our fixed costs. We used our learnings in process automation and capacity increase with Guardian, with molecular COVID-19 tests. We were able to react to market needs really quickly and increase our capacity. And in this case, for forensic toxicology, our laws changed overnight, basically. So drivers who hadn't been tested for over 2.5 years had to take this test overnight. And that is why volumes increased so much. And we were able to adapt our production capacity and more than double it for toxicology tests. That is how we were able to cater to the growing volumes. Our capacity now is bigger than our demand. For a while, we had higher demand than capacity, but now we've stricken some balance. This shows that in the production of exams and in the use of automation and different productions model to optimize and streamline production within a specific line of business, which is what we did in toxicology, is in our DNA. This is what we did with Toxicologia Pardini. We've been getting better, we've been improving processes, we've been safer, we've been more quickly, and we've also been achieving important cost reductions in these processes. This is what we've been doing in production in the Pardini group over the board, across the board. This is a successful model that has been proven more than once when we needed it. In the past few years, we've had some tough trials with COVID-19 and with the forensic toxicology tests, but we were able to overcome this. Thank you for this opportunity, Roberto. Thank you, Guilherme. Regarding M&As, I think it is important to mention, Adriana, that we have been growing in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro with a strategy of expansion in clinical analysis. We now see new clients, not only physicians and patients, but also healthcare providers. This strategy has been working. We are able to launch new locations, a few a year, both in São Paulo and Rio. So Adriana, I think you can talk about our strategy and the integration we have with new brands in new markets. Please talk about our strategy in clinical analysis and customer service. You can tell them how we have been working on that, since we had an interesting question on M&As.
Good morning, everyone. We've been consolidating our growth in the areas where we have M&A in the past, in Rio, São Paulo, and by doing that, we have strengthened our brand. This is the path we intend to take by focusing on M&A, looking for reference brands in the market, acquire those brands and bring them into our structure to strengthen those brands and also achieve an organic growth of those brands after these acquisitions. The Pardini brand in São Paulo, especially because of the COVID-19 test we have supplied to the population in moments of scarcity, was a reason why Pardini was recognized in a region where we were not widely known, and now we are reaping the fruit of that. This has increased brand awareness and has allowed us to expand. We are experiencing strong growth in São Paulo and in Rio de Janeiro. So we are also strengthening our brand there as a benchmark in laboratory message. And this is how we focus our M&A strategies, looking for other brands in other regions and trying to strengthen the clinical analysis side of our business. This is the core of our business, and this is why we look for companies like that so that we can grow our scope and take our expertise to these regions. Thank you. Thank you, Adriana. Our next question, and probably the last one, because we're running out of time, is from Fabiano with Nord Research. They also follow up Pardini's business very closely. So good morning. Congratulations on the results of the first quarter. Could you talk about the beginning of the second quarter of 21, considering volume and also the impacts of the last lockdown? And what will be the impact to keep the growth in volumes of tests and preventive tests? Is there anything on your radar regarding COVID-19 vaccines for the future? Thank you, Fabiano, for your question. Now, answering your question related to vaccines, it's important to remember that there is a major social impact related to the lack of vaccines. This should be a public democratic asset that should be provided by the government. I think that it is not very likely to have any initiative implemented this year so that diagnostic medicine companies would explore vaccination of COVID-19 privately, given the social needs and the impact we've experienced with the lack of vaccines in Brazil. Regarding the results of the beginning of the second quarter and also the impact of the last lockdown, it was a small impact. There were markets that did not have so much activity more than others, but it was different than last year because since last year health services are better prepared related to COVID-19 protocols, for example. So because of that, people were more confident and we didn't see so much impact of the lockdown in the second quarter. We've also talked about the toxicology tests. Well, the volume of those tests has increased because of the law requirements. This type of tests have increased and we are prepared for them, as Guilherme mentioned. Your question about preventive tests. Well, it's important to mention that we are part of a chain of primary care, and diagnostic medicine is an important part of primary care. In addition, of course, to all clinical protocols, medical tests that are involved in the whole healthcare chain, including nurses and other healthcare professionals. Diagnostics is a very important part of it. And it's also important in secondary care, like monitoring of some diseases and also to prevent diseases. So we have increased our part in this business by making new partnerships, but it's not going to be a company that is going to work directly on primary care, but rather to provide possibilities to companies like that. They could be independent or verticalized companies that operate in primary care. So this is how we see where we fit. Well, so this is the last question, right? Maybe you would like to make your final remarks. Well, first, again, I would like to thank all the participants for attending this earnings call, and I hope that you follow up our strategies and our results. We plan to hold an Investors Day earlier this year to resignify our strategy. Our investors relations area through Carlos Biel and Camilo will get in contact with you. My final remarks relate to the fact that I would like to thank our officers here in this meeting who have helped us achieve this great results in the first quarter. This has to do with the long-term relationship we've had with the leadership team, and also I would also like to thank our employees. Thank you very much.